Hello everyone, and welcome to the first video on King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. As promised, I will be going through this book together, although I won't be reading it entirely, but I'll be extracting key statements and key phrases that is part of the work. This first video will be an introduction, and it will also be an invocation. Namely, it is meant for you to take the first look in the mirror so that we can begin this work. The problem with this work is that it is very easy for us as men to say, I don't need to do this. What are you talking about? I already am a man. And, I think every man will have this instant reaction. But I think if we look under the surface, we begin to find that there is a lacking in this identity. The name of the picture is this. We all know and have opinions about the so-called feminist movement, the women's movement, where women try to have equal rights, and so they should. Obviously, this is an issue that women bring forth to us and we as men address. But there is a something below the surface when we analyze it, the relationship between men and women, and what is going on for them on the inside. One of the most elegant descriptions of the situation is that women have been the victims, so to speak, of the patriarchal society, where men were in the position of power and really took away a lot of women's rights. In fact, they were considered possessions for men. And looking at it from today's perspective and with an understanding of what goes inside men and why they treat women and other men in this manner, it's important to reframe the patriarchal society, whereas women were subjected to an oppressive regime where their rights as women, their feelings, and everything that women entail, whereas they were oppressed by men, men were repressed by themselves. Men grew up with rigid and unhealthy models of masculinity while growing up. As we go further into King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, we will see how this kind of repression for several hundred years in Western culture and Eastern culture too, how it has really broken a an almost sacred line of men as we pass down. Like I said, this first video is intended as an introduction and an evocation. And I will just read a little passage, the very first lines from chapter 1 of King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. The title of the chapter is The Crisis in Masculine Ritual Process. We hear it said of some men that he just can't get it together. What this means on a deep level is that so-and-so is not experiencing and cannot experience his deep cohesive structures. He is fragmented, various parts of his personality are split off from each other and leading fairly independent and often chaotic lives. We see from this phrase, he can't get himself together. And speaking of this line, I think that there is some truth that many modern man has to face. Where it be emotionally, financially, or in terms of relationships, there is not a feeling of stability, a feeling that we should feel something, we should feel an innate power, but we do not. And whatever power that we try to summon within ourselves diminishes quickly, or at least as I experience it and as I see it in other men. What I'm talking about is his deep, cohesive structures, as the book says it. And we are really looking into some real subconscious parts of the male psyche that need to be evoked, that need to come out. It's like a blossoming. It just comes out of the man, and really this cannot be done by superficial means. Western culture does not nurture a man, does not facilitate his masculinity. And when a man tries to find it in himself, he tends to project ideas about it using, what's available to him, his images of his father and images of mentors and masculine heroes. And many of these images are not necessarily healthy. We talk about John Wayne in the 50s and how he modeled the really grunts and really macho masculine archetype of the 50s. And in this day and age, we understand that image, that model of masculinity, is not particularly healthy for men. There are positive aspects of it, of course. That's why the image of John Wayne lives with us. But there is also a lot of harm that a role model like that can provide. Continuing on. The book continues on to talk about how the man who cannot get himself together probably has not had the opportunity to undergo ritual initiation into the deep structures of manhood. He remains a boy, not because he wants to, but because no one has shown him the way to transform his boy energies into man energies. The concept of the boy that is still alive is very prevalent in our Western culture, from what I can see. It is best personified by the phrase still being a kid, by a man in his, a mature man physically, but still acting like a kid and still reveling in that action. I think we all have some part of this in ourselves. And because that part of us is associated with, like I said, a repressed part of ourselves, we have to, uh, you know, really confront the image that we have ourselves because it is unconscious. A very powerful method of doing this, as a first step, is to look ourselves in the mirror, so to speak, and to write down our affirmations about ourselves. So the affirmation is, I am a man when I, and so on and so forth. And we spend 2 or 3 minutes listing of the ways that we excel as men. And then after 2 or 3 minutes, we have that list and we look at our affirmations. And then we ask ourselves, when is this not true? And the purpose of this is to really see that many of our affirmations, and where it is not true, they're in conflict. And that is why we come up with the affirmation in the first place. So by looking at how we are men, and also especially how we are not men, that is the first step in this process. In the next video, I'll be looking into where we are not men, where we're still acting as boys, and we'll be having a hard look into what is known as boy psychology, where we act out the habits and the trade-offs and the behaviors of a boy except it has matured, and it's still running and it's still complex, but on a fundamental level, there's still versions of boy psychology. Before this video and the next video, I'd like for you to do that exercise for yourself. List the ways that you see yourself as a man, where you're powerful, and come to question why you carry these affirmations in yourself. When are your affirmations not true? When are you still acting like a boy? And we'll come back and we'll have a look at it in the next video in depth. The next video talking about boy psychology may be difficult as a preemptive warning, because we will be looking at the places in our lives where we show weakness, or where we haven't got a handle of ourselves. I know the first time I read it, it was quite a difficult passage to go through, and especially when we begin to recognize ourselves. So I wish you all the best, and we'll get stuck into it next video. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.